So many different arms, so many good ones in this Brewers bullpen. An embarrassment of riches. That's what I say. Devin Williams, who? Well, still love to have him, but man, they have so many guys to pick up the slack. We'll get to that coming up next here on Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Milwaukee Brewers, this organization, can you imagine, first of all, what it would be like if the Brewers were able to keep all these guys that they've had over the years instead of having to trade them off? If somehow they were able to keep Adames, if they were able to keep Devin Williams, Corbin Burns, what would this team be like? What would this franchise be like? I'd argue they'd be one of the best. They are right now, even despite losing all these people. They are still one of the best franchises in baseball. And I get it. You're judged on the postseason. And that's where they got to get better. 5 years, bust you out in the first round. Not good enough for me. Not good enough for you. As Nick Nolte would say in Blue Chips. Not good enough for anybody. But still, this team just keeps reloading and finding guys, and especially with the arms out of the bullpen. So they lose Devin Williams, and we all knew that was going to happen. With Devin Williams. But you look at, it's like they lost Devin Williams, but they gained like 7 more arms, it seems. By the way, Chuck Freeman here, Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Good to have you along here on a Friday midday and dropping this episode here on Locked On Brewers. I'm going to try to drop an episode on Sunday as well. Maybe Sunday night. We'll be maybe possibly dropping a little weekend episode coming up. But just looking at this bullpen, I was looking up and down at the bullpen today. And sure, you would have loved to have kept Devin Williams. And I love Devin Williams, and I'm not going to blame the home run he gave up in the wild card on anybody. That sort of thing happens. Let's face it, it happens to our sports teams here in Wisconsin. It just does. But let's talk about some of these other guys. Where are they going to fit all these guys? Where are all these guys going to fit when healthy? Even without health, with some of these guys down, where are they all going to fit in? Uribe comes in the other day. First game, missed most of last season, had the knee surgery, and we know what happened, this little incident at the end of April last year. But he comes in, and he's throwing 199 on the first pitch, and looking great. Looking absolutely great. Oh, obviously, spring training results you take with a grain of salt. I hate having to always preface it that, but that's just the way it is. But still, I look at ball movement, arm, and the way he's throwing the ball. And Uribe, 100 miles an hour down in Arizona, to me, translates to 100 miles an hour AmFam Field in early April. Uribe, wow. Uribe still's got visions of closing in the future. The guy has got some big plans for himself. And, his work ethic, even as a sidebar, he even learned the English language last year or over the winter, just so says he can communicate better with everybody else, including the fans. Abner Uribe, I love him. I like his celebrations. Yeah, we didn't like the incident that happened last year, but the point in the sky and all that, or what is it that he does? I like him. I've liked him the first time I saw him, and I'm glad to see him. He is back in the mix. 100 miles an hour. That's all I have to say. You can't argue with that. And let's get to number 91 on your roster, Craig Yoho, a guy who's just blasted up the system for the Milwaukee Brewers. Just blasted up the system. And he is probably drawing the most rave out of anybody in spring training because of his changeup. We haven't talked much about Yoho in the offseason, but it's time we take notice of this guy. Long overdue, and especially the way his changeup is working. He throws a 95-mile-an-hour fastball to complement it, but yesterday, 4 strikeouts over 2 innings. Now you could argue that Yoho, some of these guys don't exactly look like major league ball players, but I'm looking to bend on this changeup. This guy's come a long way. 2 colleges, Tommy John surgery, and I hope he keeps the number 91. That 91 is just not a spring training roster for him. I don't know the story behind 91, but we saw Josh Hader wear 71. Love to see Yoho coming in with 91, throwing that changeup. I know some of you mentioned in my DMs about Yoho becoming maybe the best closer on this team is Yoho. I'm not going to go that far just yet, but I'd love to see Yoho make the team. I think the time is now with this guy. I'd love to see Yoho make the team, but at the expense of who? He's been so great, but at the expense of who is Yoho going to make the team? Then there's Jacob Mizorowski. I'd love to see the Miz get a crack at the starting rotation. Maybe not this one right now, because I like the 5 that they got out there. But I mean, down the road, I still don't know whether the Brewers look at him as a closer, reliever, closer, or as a starter. Now, he started last week in a game, and Miz looks 3 perfect innings yesterday, 3 Ks. I mean, as a whole, the Brewer pitching was just amazing yesterday. But Mizorowski, they have so many bullpen guys. Like to see them have him be a starter on the major league level. But if you're talking another arm, but where's the guy like the Miz fit? Where's he fit on this team? At the expense of who? Now, the closer, at least for now, going into camp, but he's earned it, is Trevor McGill. We saw what he did last year, especially the front part of the season when he when there was no Devin Williams to turn to because he was out injured. McGill came in and throwing 100 at 6'8", pretty intimidating. Now, the fastball numbers aren't great for not the fastball numbers. The strikeout numbers aren't tremendous for McGill. But right now, he's my closer. And worst case scenario, he's an arm out of the bullpen. I mean, that's putting it mildly. But he's a closer right now. But there's so many other guys I think you could turn to. And again, you got to have that closer's mentality. We don't know about that with Yoho on the major league level. Uribe, he has saved a few games before. And he's also got an idea to walk guys too. But, being a closer isn't just putting your best guy, lights out guy out there. He's got to be able to come in with the pressure. That's the thing about being a closer. Of course, there's pressure throughout the game, whether you're a starter or a reliever. But you know how it is in a closer. You got to have that special type of mentality. You can't be coming in there to start the bottom half of the 9th inning or the top half of the 9th inning and be throwing balls and getting behind in counts and getting behind and giving the hitter advantage. McGill doesn't do that. He's been tested in that area. Uribe, Yoho, but great options to have along with the Miz. Other guys in this bullpen. Piamps. I like Piamps. How about Piguero, Mears, DL Hall, and Ashby both hurt. But those are guys who I think are probably going to be looked at in the bullpen, at least right now when they come back. And we're going to talk more about McGill coming up here in a little bit. I feel like I'm leaving somebody out of this bullpen. Who am I leaving off of this bullpen? I'm running down the roster real quick. Brian Hudson, another guy. Hudson and Koenig. I mean, just two guys who you can count on both of those guys. Long relief, middle relief. Piguero, confidence has waned in him over the years. But DL Hall and Ashby, DL Hall, so far, the Brewers getting him from the Baltimore trade with Corbin Burns. DL Hall, with the outside of showing a little bit in September last year, hasn't shown a lot. And he's got this lat injury, and he's on the 60-day injured list as well. So basically, this trade has come down to Corbin Burns again, with Corbin Burns for Ortiz, because DL Hall hasn't really given him anything so far. Ashby, the contract they spent on him, we'll talk more about that coming up. Another guy, Tyler Alexander. We come back, we'll talk about Ashby. And Oliver Dunn, apparently, very high on the list of the executives of the Milwaukee Brewers. Very high. The Brewer executives sound like, including manager Pat Murphy, very high on this kid. Well, he's 27. He's not really a kid anymore. Are any of them really kids? Well, Churio. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Good to have you along here on Locked On Brewers. And our episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, for a reason. Well, FanDuel is such a great way to go because I think because of their amazing live betting. But they're the official sports betting partner of the NBA, and they're live betting, especially with these college basketball tournaments coming out. You know, you see a dog and they're playing on neutral courts, so you might get some better odds. And then you get to some of these teams that really have to, these smaller conferences that got to win their conference tournament to get in, which is ridiculous because you play the whole season and then you got to win your conference tournament just to get into the big dance. But live betting, I like to bet on some of those teams when they're down a little bit, and betting on them making a second half comeback. And FanDuel will give you that option. FanDuel, right now, FanDuel customers, you get $150 deposited in your account in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to join in today. FanDuel.com, your shot at $150. All you got to do is win your first $5 bet, and they're going to put that $150 right into your account, and it's all good to go. Make every moment more. FanDuel. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And they got baseball, you name it on there. Tennis, overseas, overnight. Hey, NBA too. Second half. You like a team to bounce back in the second half after they were an early favorite and they kind of got off to a slow start? Well, that's what you have to go by on FanDuel because you're going to get great odds. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Good to have you on here on Locked On Brewers. By the way, you get us on Google, Spotify, Apple. We're on all the major downloads, all those major downloads, wherever you download your podcast. We are there. Please, if you're downloading us on the audio platforms or you got a set to receive every time we drop an episode, also join our growing YouTube page. Search Locked On Brewers on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. That alerts you every time we drop an episode on Locked On Brewers. I want to talk about two guys right now. Well, first of all, Ashby. Ashby says he's going to let the oblique rest for about 2 weeks and then give it a go. He talked about how when he coughs and does general life things, the oblique doesn't bother him, only when he throws. So the strained oblique that he's got, he says he's going to let it calm down here for the next 2 weeks. But I think right now, especially going out and getting Quintana, Ashby, when he comes back, he's a bullpen candidate. Wanted him as my 5 guy, but he's a bullpen candidate. And I mentioned DL Hall, 60-day injured list. They moved him to when they made it official on Quintana yesterday. So DL Hall, that's we'll have to monitor that. There was an article in today's paper about Oliver Dunn. Now, I might not like him as an option at third base, at least as an everyday candidate. You might not like him, but the Brewers seem to be very high on him. Like some of the things he does. He so far at camp, 391 In 8 games, he's got 1 home run. Now, Pat Murphy said this to the Journal Sentinel, and there might be others who said it too, but I saw this in the Journal Sentinel. He said, talent-wise, Oliver Dunn is as good as anyone we have. Tool-wise as well. Now, you don't know if Murphy is, because sometimes Murphy's a no-nonsense guy, but Murphy's going to have the back of every guy in his team. He's going to have the back of every guy in his team. But Murphy, to say talent-wise, Oliver Dunn is as good as anybody we have. Also, tool-wise, he's as good as anybody we have. That's pretty impressive. So you think the left-hander Oliver Dunn, got to believe he's going to be heavily into that option at third base. Now, he strikes out a lot of looking, but he says, Oliver Dunn says he's adjusted his swing. He's trying to get out in front of the ball a little bit more. And let's see if he's got a bounce back. I believe he struck out like 40% of the time last year. And then he was hurt. And then that's the last we saw of Oliver Dunn. Had a very nice first couple of weeks of the season. Thought, okay, we got a nice option over at third base. Doing well. And then we forgot all about Oliver Dunn once Ortiz went over to third base and kind of solidified that spot. So Oliver Dunn's going to get another crack at it. At 27, again, not many more cracks left for Oliver Dunn to be a starter in this league, but he's got a shot now. And if you believe what the Brewers are going to say, sounds like Oliver Dunn, and they have no reason really to prop him up as far as trade market value or anything like that. Oliver Dunn going to play a lot of innings. And really, do the Brewers have any choice at third base? Do they have many options at third base? Is there many ways they can go to at third base? Probably not. Oliver Dunn sounds like he's going to be in the mix there. NL Central. Now, it's coming a time of the year where I go on baseball shows across the country, Sirius XM, the Bill Michaels show, which is not a baseball show, but it's a sports talk show statewide in Wisconsin in general. I'm on there 11:35 on weekday afternoons, weekday mornings, on Tuesdays, talking Brewers baseball. But I often get asked right now, and we're going to be doing an NL Central preview on the Locked On Network real soon here. Am I picking the Brewers to win the NL Central? And I say a resounding yes. A resounding yes. Last year I picked the Reds, and the Brewers ended up winning 93 games and waltzing away from the division. The Brewers just continually prove us wrong. Anytime we want to doubt them, except the postseason, anytime we want to doubt them, they've been coming roaring back in recent years. And the Brewers do have they have some smart guys in that front office. They do. I know sometimes people want to get down on the general manager, Matt Arnold, and all that, and I get it, but that should be more, and more of the blame maybe to Mark Attanasio because of the financial resources there. But I think this organization, like I said at the top, if they were allowed to keep all the players that they've lost and not have to deal them, how good would this team be? This team would be right up there. This team would, and as a result, they still were the third best team in the National League last year. But give them an equal playing field and how good and how smart this front office is. And they keep adding to the front office as well. There's a lot of smart guys in that front office. So that said, yes, the Brewers are still my team in the NL Central. Didn't pick them last year. 2 years ago, I don't believe I picked them either. I think I picked the Cubs. Won't go that route again. And the Cubs seem to be the sexy pick for this division. The Cubs always seem to be. Nope. I still think the Brewers are a better team. Cardinals, rebuilding process. Reds, not making that mistake again. Cubs still better. Although I think the Reds did get better in the offseason. I said that last year. And the Pirates will get off to a 10-8 start, enjoy first place for a couple of days in April, and then that's the last we'll see of the Pirates. But the Cubs I think, will make a run at the wild card, although I think this division. Yeah, somebody asked me the other day, well, if the Brewers don't win the division, could they get a wild card? I'm looking at this division as being a one playoff team. This is like a mid-major conference in college basketball where only one team from that conference will make the big dance. And the only team from the NL Central that I see making the big dance is the conference champion, the division champion, which is, I think, going to be the Milwaukee Brewers again. Until they prove me wrong, the Brewers are going to be division champs. So we come back, a couple of quick bold predictions on this team. A couple of bold predictions. We'll get a few of those out coming up next. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining me daily here on Locked On Brewers. Like I said, we might be dropping an episode on Sunday night. Might be doing something on Sunday night. So I wrote down a couple of bold predictions. Nothing out of the ordinary. But I think and you could put this in any order that you want. But I think Rhys Hoskins is going to hit 35 home runs this year. I made that prediction last year and got hurt, and he had, 27, 28? Hoskins, I got him. 35 home runs this year from first base. Let the big boy play first base, and I want him against righties and lefties. Put Hoskins in a contract year for him and a really huge year for him personally. Hoskins, 35 home runs this year. Jackson Chourio, and although I don't want to put any pressure, not that I would, but, and I said all along, let Chourio be Chourio, but I do think my bold prediction for Chourio, I'm not giving him that, like the MVP stuff and all that. I'm not putting him in that category. I'm not going to go overboard on him, but I do see him hitting 25 to 30 home runs and 100 RBIs, being one of the best hitters in the National League. Is that too much pressure on him? I think the kid can handle it. We show how much pressure the kid could handle last year. Let him be a kid. Let him continue to go out and produce. Freewheel it. 25 to 30 home runs, 100 RBIs for Chourio. I think Bryce Terang is going to have 60 stolen bases this year. 60 stolen bases. For a guy who hit, 252 last year, 60 stolen bases for Terang. I think Yoho is going to get a chance to close a couple of games this year. That's the back of my mind. I think Yoho is going to get a chance to close a couple of games. Again, I don't really go a great deal on spring training results because I've been burned. We all have on spring training results, but I like Yoho to close out a few games this year. I think Garrett Mitchell is going to hit between 25 and 30 home runs this year. Now, do I got to put the prerequisite on there that's if he stays healthy, and we know he's played over 100 games or so, just over 100 games in 3 years on the major league level. Garrett Mitchell, everyday center fielder, in my opinion, 25 to 30 home runs this year. Sal Frelick, I think numbers go up in all categories for him. I think the home run numbers go up, the RBIs. He's going to play you the great defense. And I think his totals, his numbers his average, everything. I think they all go up this year. Starting rotation prediction. My prediction, Nestor Cortez is going to be nasty. 15 wins. Now, I know for starting pitchers, wins or losses aren't what they were like in the 70s and 80s. That's just the way the game has shaped. Sometimes a guy can't stick around 7 or 8 innings in a tight ball game, in a tie game. And he gets out of there with a no decision, maybe after going 5 or 6 innings. That's just the way baseball is. We can complain about it, but that's just the way it is. But I think Cortez wins you 15 games this year. My 2 top predictions, Hoskins, 35 home runs, Cortez, 15 wins. Hey, that's going to do it for Locked On Brewers today. Beautiful weather in the state of Wisconsin. It's regional basketball playoffs, sectionals for the girls, and high school basketball going up frenzy going up all around the state. You get us on Google, Spotify, Apple, wherever you download your audio podcasts. We are there talking Brewers baseball with you. And of course, please always hit your alert buttons on all those platforms so you get alert every time we drop an episode. Follow me on Twitter as well. I always let you, when we drop an episode on Twitter, I always let you know about it on Twitter. Follow me at Chuck Freeman, FREIMUND, with all the latest Brewer takes and all that. always on Twitter. And of course, we bring it to you right here on Locked On Brewers and our growing YouTube page. Check us out, the visuals, the background information that you see, all the history of the Milwaukee Brewers in the background of my YouTube video, which we're here daily. Locked On Brewers on YouTube. Go to YouTube, search Locked On Brewers, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. That alerts you every time we drop an episode here on Locked On Brewers. Thanks for making us your first listen to every day on Locked On Brewers. For your second listen, my guy Sully, I was on his show yesterday, Locked On MLB. You want, check that out, but make that your second listen to after you make Locked On Brewers. Your first listen to every day, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. This is Chuck Freeman. Have yourself a great weekend, everybody.